ideas. So that's part of all of this. There's a grief to what we're not doing that we really ought to be doing and we want to be doing. But then there's also a piece of just being together and finding some encouragement and even being together in this way. So welcome you here, and we're just thrilled that we get to use technology to connect this morning. One thing I wanted to start out with right now is this message. And this message is good enough is good enough, because it just is. So nobody is out here trying to win a Pinterest or an Instagram or a Facebook award. Good enough is good enough. So wherever you are right now, so I want you to turn to your toddler or turn to the window or turn to a pig, and I want you to say, I am doing the best I can. Now, really say it. I'm doing the best I can, and that is enough. And that is enough. And for now, it is enough. And, I know that this moment in time is just that. It is a moment in time. This is not going to last forever, but, in week 4 of being at home, at first I heard so many people say this feels like a snow week without the snow, or a staycation without the vacation. And it really did feel that way. But we are not just working from home. We are sheltering at home to stay safe during a pandemic. And that's scary. There are pieces of that are scary. And it makes sense that you would have every emotion in the world about this. The bear cubs at your house would have every emotion in the world about this. So that to me made it seem even more important for us to spend 30 minutes together just connecting and sharing some ideas. Because the other thing that I also really believe is during this time, there's some things that I'm learning. There are some things that you are learning that are worth holding on to, even when we are all back together. There are some things that are worth really taking in some really deep places. So I went on a little bit of an Easter egg hunt. You all are doing amazing things. I have colleagues who are brilliant and clever, and you know what we always say, just to shamelessly steal ideas. So I have shamelessly stolen ideas. Even things like this picture. Chris is going to flip a picture up on the screen. We're going to share the screen, like the one before that. The things that you're seeing in your neighborhoods, the things that you are doing on your own, the artwork that you're creating, things like Chalk the Walk. I have seen so many cool sidewalk chalk, encouraging things in my neighborhood as I've taken walks. You have done this in your childcare centers for years and years. Sidewalk chalk is magical, but even more so in this time. So these are the things that I've been looking for. I asked my friends and my colleagues over the last couple of weeks, just in thinking about this time together, what are the things that are bringing you life right now? I'm working to notice the sneaky things that only our messed up routines are going to reveal. And so that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about. And there were four themes that really rose up when I asked that question of my colleagues. And these are the four. So the first one was breathing and moving, creating, and connecting. So you'll see that on this next slide. So breathing, moving, creating, and connecting. So I'm going to tell you a few stories about each of these ideas as we move along. I also want to go ahead and tell you so that you can just rest, you can lean in and listen a little bit. We are going to send you a follow-up email after this, later this afternoon, and it's going to have links to all of these ideas and resources. So you can just settle in and listen. You don't have to take a ton of notes because this is all going to be available to you with just a simple click a little bit later today. You at the bottom, and several of you have already done this as we were starting up, but if you just hopped on, there is a Q&A button at the bottom. So if you have questions as we're going along, just type those questions, and I'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes just staying on answering some of those questions after we're done at the end. So the first thing I want to talk about is breathing. And if you've ever gone to any of my trainings, you have certainly heard me talk about breathing, how breathing is your superpower. This is a skill, this is a tool that you always have with you until the very end of your life. Breathing is a way that you can calm your central nervous system. It's a way that you can help your brain make sense of some of this. And the truth is, there have been some traumatic things with this pandemic, and all of us have had our own experiences with that. But I want you to think about the ways that your brain has tried to protect itself. We call it survival brain, but it's fight, flight, or freeze. And I want you to think about in your own house how you've seen this come up. So fight would look like anger or frustration, or maybe even some physical aggression. I have a house full of boys, and it can turn physically aggressive in a second, especially when things get kind of tense. So fight would be one response. A second response is flight, this intense feeling of needing to get away from a situation or a person or a circumstance. I think after being in a house with each other for a month, certainly we have all felt some form of flight response. And the next response is freeze, and that would be feeling paralyzed, feeling stuck, just feeling like you can't move because of these intense feelings. So fight, flight, or freeze. For sure, I have felt all of these, and I bet you have too. And it leaves us in a place of really needing to catch our breath. Our brain is doing what it's supposed to do, what it's designed to do, but to need to catch your breath and to need to find your breath is normal. But these are some fun ways. I'm going to remind you of some tried and true breathing techniques. If you have followed us on Facebook, you know we have several videos that talk about some ways and show some ways of doing this with young children. We're just going to practice a few this morning. So one of my favorites is butterfly breathing. So crossing your arms and tapping on each shoulder. So you're crossing and tapping, and this bilateral stimulation does an amazing job of calming your central nervous system down. So if you have trouble sleeping, if you have a little one that has trouble sleeping, if you try just tapping and then pair that with a deep breath. So you're lifting your butterfly wings, you're going to tap, 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 and breathe in and breathe out. And feel free to practice these with me at home. But this butterfly breathing is definitely one to try. We're going to read a really sweet book a little bit later that incorporates butterfly breathing. Another one is superhero breathing. There's hardly anyone on the planet that if you ask them to show your strong muscles, that they won't do it and it won't bring a smile, especially little kids. I don't care who it is. So show your muscles, and we're going to breathe in. And we're going to breathe out, and we're going to blow our cape behind us. So we're going to breathe in and breathe out. So butterfly breathing, superhero breathing. Also, there's something about pairing a visual cue with breathing. And this is one, this is a new one that I've kind of just discovered during this pandemic resource flood of information on the internet. This one is called My Breathing Rainbow, but it incorporates some skills that we have practiced before. If you look on the internet anywhere for breathing boards, and I'll link to some of those, it really is just pairing a light touch and a visual prompt with breathing. So it might be square breathing, it might be figure 8 breathing, but this one is rainbow breathing. And this is one that really does a great job of incorporating different age groups. So you could do this with young children, you could do this with older children. And I have really honestly tried this myself, and it's helpful because it pairs a visual cue with a light touch in practicing breathing. So I'm going to show you this one. And again, this PDF will be linked on our resource page. But it says, first, just place your fingertip near one of the clouds on the red stripe. And as we follow the red stripe across the rainbow, we're going to breathe in on our way up, and then we're going to breathe out on our way down. So let's do it like this. So touch the red stripe and breathe in and breathe out. And teaching children to breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth is a really good way to get some diaphragmatic breathing going. This is a really effective way in calming down, and to do that in a succession of 3 really gets enough oxygen to their little brains and to our little brains. And the sneaky thing about this is when you're teaching this to kids, you also get to practice it yourself, and you start to learn to breathe in these ways. So now we're going to follow the orange. We're going to breathe in and breathe out. So you get the idea of rainbow breathing. Another suggestion that I usually give people when practicing breathing techniques is to relax their shoulders. I don't know if you're like me, but when I start to get tense, I really crunch up my shoulders and my neck. So giving people the reminder to relax their shoulders and relax their neck muscles when they're practicing breathing is a great way to start. But the second resource with this breathing rainbow is this rainbow meditation skit. And I love this one. This would also, I've heard from several folks that you are using ClassTag or Zoom, even with some of your preschool classes, to meet, and have seen some of the sweetest videos online of preschoolers that are so excited to see their friends. This would be an excellent idea for something to do on Zoom or on ClassTag with your folks. And it would be great to pair a caretaker if they're living with grandma or these children are at home with their parents. This would be a great family activity that you could give them the script for, or you can actually talk them through it. So I'll read just a little bit of this to you. I would give the same prompt, so find a comfy place to sit and relax your shoulders. And let's start out, let's just take a deep breath together. We're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. And then I want you just to breathe normally and listen in while I read this to you. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, do that. So imagine a big, beautiful rainbow in front of you. I want you to see all of its colors and feel the colors. Imagine first the color red. It's glowing brighter than the rest. And there's red all around you. So breathe in the color red and think to yourself, I am safe. Say it to yourself, I feel safe. Now imagine the color orange is glowing brighter than all the other ones in the rainbow, and orange is all around you. Breathe in orange and think to yourself, I feel my feelings stirring in my body, and say to yourself, I feel peaceful. Next, imagine the color yellow is glowing and is all around you. I want you to breathe in yellow and think to yourself, I am powerful, and say it to yourself, I feel confident. And this script goes through all of the other colors in the rainbow. And then there's another page with discussion questions. And these would be excellent discussion questions for older children, for tweens, for some of your older siblings that are at home. So I would really encourage you to use this Breathing Rainbow resource that we're sending you. The next slide is a picture of a book that we really like. If you're into ordering things on Amazon these days, this is a book called My Magic Breath, and it gives such a great visual. It's beautifully illustrated, but it gives a really good um, education on mindful breathing. So that's a book that our mental health consultants have loved using. Um, so we're going to move on from breathing to the next brilliant idea for finding joy in this pandemic that I ran across, and this is moving. So music is what reminds me most to move. Put on some songs that just do it for you, that put some shoulder action in it for you. You know, these reminders we need. You have a hard time spiraling into worry when your brain can focus on some music. Now, this is going to date me. I am admittedly getting ready to turn 50, but if you were a teenager in the mid 80s and you watched the television show Fame, I guarantee you cut the neck out of every sweatshirt you had, and you will relate to this. So Debbie Allen from the show Fame is teaching free dance classes on her Instagram account. Okay, so here is your motivation. She is 70 years old. If she can do this, you can do this. Like moving, watching other people move. I mean, you have to watch Debbie Allen on Instagram. And on the next slide, if you watch Ellen DeGeneres at all, are you familiar with Sir Twitch? Watching him and his wife, her name is Allison Holker. She was on Dancing with the Stars, and he really became famous on So You Think You Can Dance. They showed videos of them dancing together at their house. They're still doing it, but when she was 9 months pregnant, it was so inspiring to me. You cannot watch that and not just want to move and just experience pure joy. So music is just an available friend to you that is going to encourage you to move, and it's going to give you energy to either get some energy going or to wind things down. A friend sent a song to me. She sent me the YouTube link to this song, and it was called "You're Gonna Be Okay." And for some reason, it just hit me when she sent that. I listened to it 3 times over, and something shifted inside of me when I was listening to that song because the words were so encouraging, but it just helped me not go into a spiral of worry. The other thing I found on YouTube was some relaxing music that pairs with rain. And I pop in my earphones and I wash dishes, or I do something that I don't want to do on the computer, and somehow it makes it more bearable. So engaging a different part of your brain is really, really important. Which, by the way, I don't know when you notice your brain going into this spiral, slippery slope of, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. But that usually happens to me when I'm reading CNN. And one of the suggestions that people had most often was just check the news once a day. It's really healthy. But the next slide is something that has really brought joy because I have found myself absolutely starved for good news. And if you are familiar with John Krasinski from The Office, this guy right here, he and his kids had this idea to scour the internet and find some good news. There are 2 episodes of it. We'll give you the link on YouTube. This will make you laugh. It will make you cry. And if you are a Hamilton fan, please email me after you see the 2nd episode of Some Good News. But the thing about this is, when you watch this and you realize the good things that are happening in the world, you want to be part of the good news. And there's something hopeful in that. And I would just really encourage you to connect with Some Good News. So moving, stretching your body, squeezing your muscles, doing some things to get your blood flowing. All these things are really important. Check out our Facebook page for the videos that we've shown about just some ways to unpeel yourself off the couch, to stretch and move. That may be the most important first move, but it's really important. So another thing that people have said has really brought them a lot of joy over and over is taking walks in their neighborhood. I mean, are there more birds right now than ever, or do we just have time to listen to them? This next picture is a picture from our backyard. We have a small Yoda statue in our backyard, which is kind of funny, but you'll notice that Yoda only has one ear because boys. And that picture on the left is my garden, my yard a couple weeks ago. And we could literally sit and watch the hostas grow. So in a span of 2 weeks, the leaves have come out, everything's blooming. Yoda still only has one ear. We've gotten to sit and pay attention to things that we have missed. But in the middle of this, how much can you cook? How many of you have been cooking and can think of not one more thing to cook with pasta? Like, seriously, I may never want to see pasta again, but there was this great suggestion someone had of making something that brought you joy in childhood. So think about a food that you loved to eat when you were a little child. And I decided to make a BLT and Kraft macaroni and cheese. So BLT with white bread and Kraft mayonnaise. Do not come at me on the question and answer about Dukes or Hellman's. I don't want to hear it because you are wrong. But when I made a BLT with white bread and Kraft mayonnaise and the macaroni and cheese with the orange powder from the box, it took me back to some of my best days as a little girl. So I would encourage you, this is another way to connect in your brain to a time of joy and something that brings you comfort. So I would encourage you, cook something from when you were a little child, even if it's Kraft mac and cheese from a box. Now, maybe it's the opposite of moving, but some of you have really said that watching mindless TV is very helpful. The Office, Friends, 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, Tiger King, Tiger King. So 34 million people watched this in the first 2 weeks. I don't really understand it, but sometimes it's just what it takes. And if you have Verizon, you probably know that Disney Plus is free for a year. So make a bowl of popcorn and have a movie night. But lots and lots of things are available right now if we can take advantage of them. So another pandemic superpower is creating. You know, there's something about this time that now there's time. When you think about the things that you've always said, what if I just had, some extra time, then maybe I would get back to painting. Maybe I could get back to doing something creative. One thing, and Chris, it's the slide before this one thing that I have been doing is taking a free online art class. And the interesting thing about this, it's called Sketchbook Revival, and we'll have the link to that. You just get an email once a day and you watch a 20-minute video from an artist showing you how to do things. But I'm doing this with my cousin in Canada and my cousin in Asheboro. And we have never connected. We've never done anything like this, but we take pictures and it doesn't matter how bad they are. Like, this is a picture of watercolor painting day, but it has been such a fun way to share creativity. So I would encourage you, take part in a free art class. The next slide is another really cool thing. Mo Willems, who he's the author of all those pigeon books for little kids. He has a lunch doodles class. So at 1 o'clock every day, he is in his studio with a video so your kiddos can draw along. He teaches how to draw the pigeons, and they're real simple shapes, but just amazing. Even watching people be creative is fantastic. There's so many musicians sharing concerts from their kitchen, just so many great ideas. But I would encourage you, go hang out with Mo Willems and draw a little bit. Speaking of other free things, we wanted to point you towards some other free resources on the internet. So free books are all over the internet. And have you discovered all of the famous people that are reading children's books? Okay, so Oprah reading The Hula Hooping Queen on storylineonline.net. This will delight your socks off. And on Instagram, there is called Save with Stories. On Instagram, it's a fundraising site. But Sugar Ray Leonard, the boxer, he reads the story, The King of Kindergarten. If you have a little one leaving for kindergarten, it is the best. Also, my favorite, Tracy Ellis Ross, she's reading the book Be Who You Are. Or Jamie Lee Curtis is reading her book, Today I Feel Silly and Other Moods That Make My Day. Okay, that Today I Feel Silly book, that will pretty much encapsulate how you feel every single day. all of those feelings all in one day. But to get to watch her read that is fantastic. So Save with Stories and storylineonline.net. Also, Audible books, just the audio of books. We used to call them books on tape, but I don't even think it's books on tape anymore. So Audible is offering free books. So as long as schools are closed, they've said that they are going to offer free books. So like Harry Potter, you can just listen to it. So maybe in your chill out time, you can use some of these resources. So, the last pandemic superpower I've heard about over and over was connecting. And when I think of connecting, that means a lot of things. You would normally think it means connecting to people. And yes, it means connecting with people and not isolating yourself. So, taking the opportunity to text, call, Zoom, FaceTime people. But I would like to kind of end our time together talking about connecting to yourself. You have to have some chill time. Your kiddos have to have some chill time too. And I think about the amazing cozy corners, the cozy areas that you have set up all in your classrooms. And how can you bring a piece of that to yourself at home? So I don't know if you are like me, but if all your birds are back in the nest, I mean, all the birds are back in your small nest, this may take some creativity, but I have taken over one end of our dining room table, and I have my little jar of my favorite pens. I have my earbuds, my computer, my blanket, my candle that smells good, and it is my space. Your space might be in your car. I saw one person on Instagram sitting in a bathtub with no water. It was her space. It was where she could get away. You may have to be creative, but make some space. You know, Many of you have been in my training about creating a joy juice album. And I would encourage you, have some pictures around that bring you joy, like this picture of my puppy when he was a puppy. Just find something to put in your space that brings you joy. And the next slide is encouragement to find some mindfulness practices. There are two resources that we use a lot with kids, these mindfulness card ideas. There are 50 cards that give different mindfulness activities, and honestly, they're just as good for adults as for kids. And the next one, Breathe Like a Bear. These are two things that you can get on Amazon and that we have given to our folks, that these are the ones that are tried and true and really get some great mileage. So some really good ideas with the Breathe Like a Bear book. We have lots of practice being busy and frantic, but honestly, most of us have no idea what to do with a time that's slower. I have found that having some apps on my phone or my computer are ways that I can really guide myself into a practice that is not necessarily natural for me. And so here are some icons of the apps, and most of these, actually, I think all of these are free at this point, especially during this pandemic time. Headspace, Calm, Breathe to Relax, Stop, Breathe, and Think has a kids version that is fantastic. But the one in the middle is one that is particularly helpful for me. I've actually been using this since January, and I will tell you about it. It comes from a faith-based perspective, and it pairs scripture with calm music and breathing. But it breaks it down into a 1 minute, a 3 minute, a 5 minute, and a 10-minute segment, which, for some of us, we have to work our way up to being able to sit still for 10 minutes. And at the end of the 1 and the 3 minute practices on this, it's called pause. At the end of these practices, it says in the kindest voice, and that's enough for now. And, that goes along with our message for today, and that's enough for now. And it's not like we say to kids, and that's enough. It's you know what, that's enough for now. Like the practices that you're doing, the things that you're putting into place are enough for now. I want to end our time together with that thought. I want to show you one more resource that is going to be linked for you, and I would highly encourage. This is a book, and it's called The Story of the Oyster and the Butterfly. And I think it actually is worth reading through a little bit of this book. Chris is going to pop it up, the PDF. We'll go over just a few minutes. We can do this today because it's live. We understand if you have to hop off at the 30-minute mark, but I would love to share this book with you if you have time. This would be an excellent book for you to share with your classrooms on video, or to send to parents to read. So here comes the book, The Story of the Oyster and the Butterfly, The Coronavirus and Me. Do you know what oysters do when something that bothers and irritates them comes into their lives? They use their special powers to cover the bothering stuff with layers and layers of powerful stuff until they turn it into a butterfly. Christy, you want me to show it this way? It's on the screen. So they turn it into a pearl. And do you know what the caterpillar does when it has to go through tough stuff and changes? It spends time with itself inside a cocoon and changes into a butterfly at its most difficult moments. The caterpillar is actually building its wings. Do you think you are spending your time inside a cocoon during your most difficult moments? The coronavirus has come into our lives not only for you, but for people all over the world. However, we can do what the oyster does and create a pearl from it, or what the caterpillar does and build our wings. And so this book goes through all kinds of different interactive activities that you can do with kids to help them understand the coronavirus a little bit better. And it even talks about butterfly breathing. So one of our favorite breathing techniques is actually part of this book, and it talks about your superpowers within this coronavirus time. So I would highly recommend. There's a Spanish version of this book also, so you'll have a link to that PDF. But it has been so great spending time with you this morning. I send you best wishes from our staff. Please get in touch with us if you need counseling services during this time. We are still offering services by video and phone. Until next time, we wish you well. And you will, when you jump off the Zoom session, you will get just a short survey. We're so curious how a live webinar was for you. So if you would answer those questions, that would be great. And again, if you have questions, I'll stay on for 5 or 10 minutes at the end to answer some questions. But have a great day. I hope this has been encouraging for you. And I'm going to look on the screen. Chris, you might have to read questions out loud to me if there are any.
Sarah said hi.
Hi, Sarah. I don't see a question. Chris is going to read the questions to me. Here we go. Let's see. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, we'll be sending any resources for adult children who live in other states and far from us. Sarah, I will put together a few things on our resource page. We are going to have a coronavirus resource page, and it'll have some different tabs. So it'll have some links to things that are helpful for kids and for adults and for teachers. So we'll send some links to some things that our clients have found helpful and that our therapists have found helpful. So you've been practicing the wishing well, but wondering if there are other practices. So the book, The Oyster and the Butterfly, have a whole bunch of practices that you can go through, a lot of different mindfulness techniques, a lot of drawing. So the rainbow wishing that we talked about. Also, one thing that we didn't talk about much was progressive muscle relaxation. So that's another great thing that you can practice by video if you are connecting by video. And there are a lot of, we have some good scripts for that. So tightening your muscles and then relaxing, that's another really, really good practice, both for adult kids, and for kids. Let's see. You see the question with kids? Yeah, it doesn't. I've got two questions from Sarah. If you scroll the scroll bar down, then I can see. Yeah, there you go. Yes, we will have a link to all of the books that were mentioned today. And if you scroll down on the scroll bar, yeah. Chris and I are working together on this. Will it also be for kids ages 8 to 12, boys in particular? Yes, there will be some resources for boys ages 8 to 12, and that's such an interesting age, 8 to 12. So a lot of things to help get the wiggles out and to do some physical things when there may not be a lot of space outside to do that. So we do videos online. We have been doing them 3 times a week. We'll have a new one tomorrow, and we have 3 more for next week. So the videos typically come up on our Facebook page every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we were putting together the webinar for today, so we missed yesterday's. But we have one of our mindfulness experts who is actually sheltering in place in Brazil. Her name is Rosanna. She has a couple of videos that will be offered next week, and she has amazing skills in mindfulness. So those will be more geared toward older children and adults. So those will be some really good resources. No more questions? All right, folks, it sure was good to see you. We may come back together in this way again, but until then, we wish you well. Bye-bye.